into a conversation with Jesus. It's human nature, after all, to want to be the best, to be first, to be on top. Our culture develops our egos and teaches us from early childhood that in sports, politics, business, and education, it's all about being number one and obtaining the prestige and the power that goes along with being in that top position. That's why, along with his disciples, we are also baffled by Jesus. He is so counterculture in so many ways that we just don't quite know what to do with him. The thing is, though, if we are going to be followers of Jesus, that means being with him on the journey. And that's basically what the gospel story is, the story of a journey, the journey of Jesus and his disciples. And what Jesus communicates to his disciples again and again is that the journey is a tough one. Following him means just that. Following his lead, imitating his actions, obeying his commandments, doing the tough jobs, the servant jobs, not just basking in his reflected glory. As they walk together on the journey toward Jerusalem, Jesus explains to his disciples what he knows is going to happen to him. In the verses just before the ones that we heard, he says, "We're going to Jerusalem, and I will be handed over to the chief priests and the scribes, and they will condemn me to death. And they will hand me over to the Gentiles, and they will mock me, spit upon me, flog me, and kill me. And after 3 days, I will rise again." Now, it's important to point out that this is the third time in Mark's gospel that Jesus has told his disciples these things. It's the third time he's described to them the betrayal and the suffering and the death on a cross that's waiting for them in Jerusalem. And it's the third time he's predicted that he will rise again from the dead. For him to repeat these things so many times, he obviously feels that it's critical that his disciples understand just what's going to happen on their journey that they've undertaken together. Alas, for the third time, the disciples just don't get it. In fact, they make it pretty clear that their expectations of discipleship are still pretty different from his expectations of them. They're still thinking of themselves, being number one. James and John asked Jesus to sit with him in glory, one at his right hand and one at his left. They don't even hear what he's saying about the cross, but instead focus on what his disciples have assumed all along, that God is going to establish Jesus up on a throne of power and glory. The brothers also apparently believe that since they are some of his closest friends, that they're going to get some of the best seats at the head table. And it's not just James and John. The other disciples also feel deserving of positions of importance. Once again, though, Jesus tries to straighten them out. "Follow me," he tells them. "Be a servant, a slave of all. Give your life for others." It's a tough journey, but friends, that's what discipleship is all about. Now, I guess it's not surprising that disciples then and now don't understand Jesus on this point. It's just our human instinct to see everything as a competition to be won. You know, survival of the fittest and all of that. And of course, our human instincts carry over into all of our human institutions, including the church. I see this in my role on staff of Hudson River Presbytery, in which I work primarily with congregations that are struggling with decline. It's strange, but many churches really do believe that there's in some sort of a competition to be the best, the biggest, the one with the most members, the tallest steeple, or the best-looking pastor. No kidding. I recently heard someone say that if we just had a young, handsome pastor, then we would begin to grow again, and all our problems would be solved. Rhonda better watch out. Because if they do that, if they start growing again, they could reverse the decline of the past 50 years or so, and they could go back to the church's glory days. Back to the time when the church still had status and power. On February 4th, 1968, exactly 2 months before he was assassinated, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. preached a powerful sermon on this morning's passage from Mark 10, titled, "The Drum Major Instinct." His sermon was based on what he sees as the most basic human instinct, a desire to be out front and be recognized, a desire to lead the parade as the drum major. He said it is first demonstrated as infants when we cry to get attention, and then as adults we still want that attention, and so we do good things in order to be praised. Everybody likes to be praised, King says. And somehow this warm glow we feel when we are praised or when our name is in print is like vitamin A to our ego. He says the only time people are unhappy about praise is when that praise is going too much to somebody else. Everybody likes it because of this drum major instinct we have. King even goes so far as to say that this instinct is why so many people join human institutions, including the church. You know, there are some people who just join everything, he says, and it's really a quest for attention and recognition and importance. And they get titles that give that impression. They become the grand patron. And the little fellow who is henpecked at home gets a chance to be the most worthy of the most worthy of something. He says, it's the drum major impulse. We join things, overjoin, really. Things in which we think that we will find that recognition. So is that what the church is? A group of people seeking recognition and important titles? A human institution standing with its back to the future because it's looking for a return to the good old days when the church had more status? You have to admit that back 50 or 60 years ago, the church had real influence in our society. It mattered which church you went to, and church membership was important for the prestige and respectability it offered. The church calendar was essentially your social calendar, and church people were your best friends and your connections. That's no longer the case, is it? The church is no longer central in our society. It's no longer influential or even credible. People no longer understand the language and culture of the church. They're indifferent at best, and sometimes even hostile toward organized religion. They have many more choices in all areas of their lives and many more ways to become part of the community. Going to church is no longer a duty or an obligation. It's just another choice people have. It's just also one among many institutions struggling for survival. So why is that? What happened? Well, a lot happened. But it seems to me that one of the things that happened is that the church has forgotten what Jesus wants and expects of his followers. Whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you must be the slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. You see, it's not that Jesus doesn't want us to be the best we can be. It's just that he has a different idea of what it is we should be best at. In King's sermon, he talks about Jesus' response to James and John's request to be at his left and right hands in glory. Jesus could have told them that, hey, you guys are out of line. But that isn't what Jesus did, King points out. Instead, Jesus said essentially, oh, I see. You want to be first. You want to be great. You want to be important. You want to be significant. Well, you ought to be. If you're going to be my disciple, you must be. But then Jesus reordered their priorities. And he said, you don't give up on this instinct. It's a good instinct if you use it right. Don't give it up. Keep feeling the need to be important. Keep feeling the need for being first. But I want you to be first in love. I want you to be first in moral excellence. I want you to be first in generosity. That's what I want you to do. And so, King says, Jesus gave us a new norm of greatness. If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. But remember that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. So, does Jesus want your church to be the biggest? To be the one with the most members, the tallest steeple, or the best looking pastor? Does Jesus want you to have the most beautiful building, the most overflowing Sunday school, the most excellent choir? According to this morning's gospel lesson, not so much. What he really wants is for you to be the best servants. He wants you to serve others. He wants you to love your neighbors and give generously of yourselves to address their needs. It's not human instinct to do that, is it? It's downright counterculture to put someone else first. I mean, where's the reward? Where's the payoff? Will it save the church? Will our church grow if we do that? That's really the big question, isn't it? If we do all of that, if we quit worrying about programs and buildings and meetings and devote all of our attention and energy and resources to serving the needs of our community, will all those old inactive members suddenly come back? Will the pews be packed again? Will we need to start a second service and buy the lot next door to add parking? Well, no. We might see a few new faces in the crowd, but there won't be many of them. A few might stick around, but most probably won't. And those who do stay, I'm telling you, they're not going to fit in with the old guard. They won't know about how you've always done it. They'll want to make changes of their own. And their new ideas are going to make you uncomfortable. Your church won't look or feel like it used to. You'll feel like you're losing control of this place that you worked so hard to preserve. It will feel like your church is dying. Barrett Lee, who is pastor of a mission church in inner city Kalamazoo, Michigan, that has a specialty of serving mentally ill people. He says, that's just how it is. A growing church is a dying church. It has to be, he says. It cannot be otherwise. Because the way to Easter Sunday goes through Good Friday. The way to the empty tomb goes through Golgotha. And the way to resurrection, as Jesus told us, is through crucifixion. When Jesus told you to take up your cross and follow him, Lee asks, did you expect it to lead anywhere else? When Jesus told us about himself, what Jesus told us about himself is also true for churches. Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it bears no fruit. A church must die to the old in order to allow for something new to grow. And friends, the gospel story is the story of a journey. The story of Jesus and his disciples. And what Jesus communicates to his disciples over and over again is that the journey is a tough one. And following him means just that. Following his lead, imitating his actions, obeying his commandments, doing the tough jobs, the servant jobs, not just basking in his reflected glory. It means that instead of being the drum major leading the parade, we may need to be the ones following behind the horses, cleaning up. At the end of his sermon on this passage, Martin Luther King Jr. specified what he wanted said at his funeral. He said, if you want to say I was a drum major, say I was a drum major for justice. Say I was a drum major for peace. I was a drum major for righteousness. And all the other shallow things will not matter. Yes, Jesus, he says, I want to be on your right or your left side, not for any selfish reasons. I want to be on your right or left side, not in terms of some political kingdom or ambition. But I just want to be there in love and in justice and in truth and in commitment to others, so we can make this old world into a new world. Amen?